hot topic here on Morning Kicker on Monday, March 31st. The hot topic of the day, Major League Soccer. Which coach is going to be the first to find the exit door?
Second.
We're going to...
Second.
Oh, yeah. My goodness. It's
Second.
going so fast. The next. Which MLS manager is the next? Montreal is so trigger happy. They already beat me to the punch. Courtois being dismissed in Montreal already. His interim manager got a draw. But we bring this topic up because one very tenured Major League Soccer coach is got a lot of pressure on him, and the fans are speaking out about it.
Yeah, the most tenured manager in Major League Soccer. I believe his employment goes back, I want to say 2011, 2012. That would be right around the time that the Kansas City Wizards became Sporting Kansas City, if I'm remembering correctly.
There's a Wiz era, isn't there, in between those two?
No, there's no Wiz era between.
That's
before that. Yeah, Well, you had the Wiz, then they got sued, they became the Wizards, and then around 2011, 2012, 2009. My bad. I shorted Peter Vermes a couple of years. He took over in 2009. If I've got this right there. So, and now look at the standings. Right, look at the start of the season for Sporting Kansas City, and it's not just that. You can go back just a little bit in history and see that this is not a team. I'm talking about last season. This is not a team that like finished the year okay and then just had a bad start and now they've got to figure it out. They are 0-12-1 in their last 13 games. Is Sporting Kansas City.
Say that again. Say that again for those in the back.
They have not won a game in their last 13. 0-12-1. I believe that is one draw out of their last 13 matches. They have a single point this season. So that is their one result in the last 13 games under the leadership of one Peter Vermes. That draw, by the way, a 3-3 with Minnesota a couple weeks ago.
I feel like I can hear like a collective gulp from a whole fan base hearing that read out loud.
Here is the statement that just came out this weekend. Kansas City Cauldron, South Stand supporters groups, obviously, after this loss to Dallas, in Dallas on Saturday. It's a bit of a long one here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. They do give Peter Vermes the respect that he deserves for the work he has done. He did win an MLS Cup in Kansas City. Let's not forget that. It says, for over 2 decades, Peter Vermes has been a defining figure in Kansas City soccer, from his time as a player with the Wizards to his transformation of Sporting Kansas City into an MLS powerhouse. Championship victories, commitment to defensive identity, winning culture, blah, 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 blah. However, there was where it turns, Robert. When you write however, history and loyalty cannot be shields against accountability. The trajectory of this club on the field has become unacceptable, and we can no longer stand by while mediocrity overshadows our once proud legacy. Ooh. It mentions declining results, ambitions dwindling. Fans have been expected to tolerate repeated disappointment with no meaningful change in approach, lack of urgency, lack of adaptation, lack of accountability. This is not about a single bad season. It's about a pattern of failure that has been allowed to persist without consequence. And they say they are not going to abide by this anymore. It says Peter Vermes must resign as manager. This is not a request. It is a demand from a fan base that refuses to watch its club wither under outdated tactics and unchallenged authority. Ooh. His tenure has run its course, and a fresh vision is required. Now, first of all, what the outdated tactics is a wild accusation. What does that even mean? Like, how do you describe outdated tactics? He's not playing with 6 forwards, and this is not Scotland 1922 or something.
They're playing the old boy rules.
What are they talking about with that?
Maybe he unchanging, maybe too structured. Maybe he's playing the same way he did a long time ago. Is that true?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think you should be throwing around accusations about tactics. You can talk about results. The results are there. They're glaring. They're obvious. It's not been good enough. I'm always skeptical of supporters groups making demands It's like if you go out, watch the team. I don't know. This is a weird thing to kind of step
Oh,
into.
you're stepping into gatekeeper world here.
I just no, it's not. I'm not gatekeeping them being fans. I'm not gatekeeping them caring. I'm just saying it gets weird when you write a letter and all these things. Go and boo the performance. Go on radio and yell about your manager. Post on social media individually. Those things are all fine. This kind of thing just I don't know.
Okay, with that in mind, because so you're saying like this is a blanket statement. So you're saying there was probably individuals within this collective that may or may not feel exactly this way for the
It's
demand.
possible. It's possible. I mean, I think it's really hard to argue that anything is good with Kansas City right now. So I don't know that there are many people within the supporters groups that are like, yeah, Peter should stay. He had a bunch of built up credit. Look, this is a business, and it is a business, but this is also this is a results based business, I guess what I was going to say. And when the results are bad, there is an argument that a change needs to happen. And when you watch Joey Saputo pull the trigger on firing Laurent Courtois 4 matches into a season, or you see Philadelphia say, you know what, Jim Curtin, you achieved a bunch of stuff here. By the way, he was the second longest tenured manager in Major League Soccer before he was fired at the end of last season. When you see a Philadelphia make a decision like that, a brutal one, one that some people didn't agree with, you see that's on some level that's ambition, right? There could be an incompetence behind those decisions occasionally, sure. But there is an indication that we want to be better, and we think we can be better than what we are right now if we make a change. And what this seems to indicate, when you are 0-12-1 in your last 13 games, when you sit at the bottom of the table collectively in Major League Soccer, CF Montreal, with their draw this weekend, now has moved above Sporting Kansas City in the collective table, 30th out of 30. Wow. Where is the accountability? To the point of the letter, where is the accountability? And if we're going to make a little bit of a ranking here of coaches who whether or not there's always a context to it. Do you think the club has the stomach to make a change, Robert? That's always a question. And I'm not sure Sporting Kansas City does.
I mean, Peter Vermes has more than one job and more than one role at this club.
He does not now.
No?
He does not now. They brought in Mike Burns to take over the general manager part that Peter Vermes was carrying for so long. And the stories out of Kansas City and the reporting out of Kansas City is this makes life so much easier for Peter Vermes. And he's so thrilled to have Mike Burns in place to help him with all of this. Now, I suppose you could give Mike Burns some runway and say, well, he hasn't been there very long. He hasn't been able to really get his fingerprints on this team in terms of the roster build. It's not really on Mike Burns. Okay. But it is on Peter Vermes. He was the one in charge of those things before, and he's in charge of helping the team win the games on the field, and they are not doing that. It's real. I don't want people to be fired. I don't want people. I'm not screaming about, Peter Vermes, he has to go. Like, I don't want him to be fired, but it's really hard to argue he shouldn't go when things look like this, because now it feels as though you are just afraid of moving the furniture. You're afraid of making changes because he's so entrenched as the guy there in Kansas City. Maybe he needs to step aside. Because they call for resignation.
Yeah, that's actually probably, that eases the burden on the club if he does it himself, because they would really be tested on how to decouple. I mean, do you offer him a different role and be like, hey, coach, you might need to step aside, but that might be the easiest or the least painful for the club, because obviously there's plenty of seasons. When was the last time they had like an astounding achievement laden season? So like that pressure's got to be building, and it's almost like the emperor's got no clothes sort of a situation. It's like, clearly, I mean, obviously there's been achievement in the past, but that is a distant memory at this point. And so it's definitely been a slow moving ship. When he probably looked around a little bit nervously when Curtin was let go at Philadelphia, because that was the most like staunchly, entrenched coach at that time. He's kind of out on a bit of a limb here, I guess. The fan group trying to put some pressure on, and probably from these chairs that we sit on, we want a Sporting Kansas City to be better, right? I mean, we don't want them to go year on year having them be bad. And for context, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 other teams in the league that haven't won a game yet either. So there's more contestants for a coach to get let go beyond Peter Vermes. But if we're going to make this segment about who's next, logic, not necessarily history, but logic would point you to the direction of Peter Vermes.
Yeah, I would say that. Now, this is Major League Soccer. So there is always, oh, well, they'll just get hot in July and August and September and they'll make the playoffs or whatever, or they'll have a good month somewhere and they'll fit. So, let me look, the most recent success for Sporting is 2023. They went to the Western Conference semifinals, I believe, something like that. They lost to Houston, who went on to lose to LAFC in the conference final. LAFC went on to lose to Columbus in the MLS Cup final. That you remember that one. So, and they finished 8th in the conference that season, right? They beat San Jose on penalties in that play-in game. They beat St. Louis over 2 legs in the first round of the playoffs. And then again, they lost to Houston 1-0. I believe that game, in Houston. Houston was a higher seed. I mean, so you can say, like, if you're being kind to Peter Vermes, you can look at that and say, well, like, he's got a recent history of making a deep run in the playoffs, or a semi-deep run in the playoffs. So is that a reason to keep him around? Because it's Major League Soccer, and all you got to do is make the playoffs. And I guess I'm kind of wish casting here, but I'm ready for, and I don't think this has happened on some level, but I'm ready for teams to hold their managers to a higher level of accountability. Like, it shouldn't matter that maybe you can make the playoffs in 8th place at the end of the year if you're Peter Vermes. It should matter whether or not you can win a game right now. And you can't. He can't win a game right now.
And that's tough for anyone in any job if you were literally finding zero success for months on end, for matches on end. It's hard for anyone to keep a job like that, and especially in such a results, based line of work. You got your idea finger up. What you got?
I have my finger up because thanks to Nerdy Soccer Guy, I have just checked on Blue Sky, and Tom Bogert has reported that Peter Vermes has been fired.
Oh my!
As we are talking about him, this news has just broken. 16 years on the job, and he has just been fired as we bring this up, and that's
pouring out.
Yeah. I mean,
pouring out.
Again, you cannot say it wasn't coming. I think it's okay to say it wasn't coming. He shouldn't be the manager of Sporting Kansas City anymore. They had to make a change. Things were broken and not getting better. And also say, man, it's sad that Peter Vermes finally lost his job because he was an institution there. And he did have some success. But this is a what have you done for me lately business. And he has not done anything of note, of enough note, recently. So that's now 2 managers in the first 5 rounds of the MLS, 6 rounds of the MLS season, whatever we're in. That's pretty remarkable. One of them you can chalk up to Joey Saputo. The other one is, wow, the Sporting's just bad.
That's wild, actually. Opposite ends of the bookcase there, as far as the longest tenured coach, right after the quickest, one of the quicker firings in recent memory. And so
we should go overtime a little bit on this. I know we're gonna give you guys our Ringer 11 for the Open Cup that we put together. But just because now the guy we had at top of our list is off the table, he is now fired, according to Tom Bogert. Who would be next? Before we did this, I mentioned that Greg Vanney has to be included, even though I don't think he's going anywhere. And his recent success is a championship. So you just say, okay, we'll give him some time to figure out a roster that has been upended by the offseason. I mean, otherwise, is Ben Olsen in any danger with the start that Houston has had?
I think that they'll hold faith. I think Ben Olsen has enough cachet to hold on a little bit longer.
I mean, they lost Ache. They sold Coco Carrasquilla. They're working on some things there. Maybe you let him have the transition. Brian Schmetzer has not started well. They're on 6 points through 6 games. It's not nearly as disastrous as some of these other teams. They haven't started well. Brian Spencer's not going anywhere, though, right?
No, he's another long tenured one. So with Vermes gone, there's you don't want to necessarily be the longest lasting one.
No wins in Toronto for whose name like Robin Fraser. No wins in Toronto for Robin Fraser. But that's a broken system, and he's got to fix that too. As you give him credit and let him, or give him time, right?
Yeah, and we actually, New England, we didn't talk about this at the top of the show, but New England got their first win, a 2-1 win over Red Bulls, and I know that there was some talk on Friday seeing if this was going to be their coaches
Well,
last one at
they're
charge.
they're gonna have to put something together for a couple of. There's a chance that they could lose next week and Porter could be gone, because again, this is not, Porter does not have the obviously much of a tenure in New England, but his tenure's not good. Like his history at the club is not good, and if they can't figure out a way to significantly improve this season, then I would imagine that Caleb Porter could be next.
But okay, so amongst those, who would you say is more likely, Caleb Porter or Robin Fraser? I mean, if you're gonna, is that a coin flip at this
I think
point?
Robin Fraser is going to get some more time. They're not going to fire him 6 games into his career as Toronto FC manager because they don't really have an obvious place to go. Porter, I imagine that behind the scenes there's been some discussions and that they are talking about what their backup plan would be in New England, or what direction they would go in. I do think they want some stability there because it's not that long ago that the Bruce Arena Richie Williams thing popped off, and they would like to have some. But I'm not sure they hired the right guy for that. Is the question I would have. I will throw DC United in here. I hope Troy Lesesne holds on to his job for a little while longer. They have not started well, and then everybody else. I mean, Paulo Mastroeni's not going anywhere. Bruce Arena's not going anywhere. We're still in the early days of Ronnie Dyla. And then every one of these other teams, you sort of talk about either a new manager or having some success in the early going.
But there are some candidates for sure. There's some hot seats, but in case you're just joining us, the breaking news as we were talking about the Major League Soccer coaching hot seat, Peter Vermes was mutually parted ways.
No, he was fired. Let's be honest. He was fired.
Well, I was just going to the press release that came out literally 3 minutes ago.
I know that, but it always says that. Maybe he decided to resign, but I find that very difficult to believe considering he is a very proud guy, always believes he can fix it. And I think this was I think this was a fire. I think it was like, Peter, come on, this isn't good. We got to let you go.
So his accomplishments at the 2013 MLS Cup and Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. So they did a double in 13, as well as winning Open Cup in 2012, 15, 17. And Vermes guided Sporting Kansas City to 11 playoff appearances, including 8 straight from 2011 to 2018, and 4 first place finishes in the regular season. So Peter Vermes, longest tenured coach in Major League Soccer, out after the 6th week and 13 matches without a win. All right, interesting stuff there happening as we talk about it, but subscribe, guys, if you haven't already. Morning Kick Around on YouTube. The number's doing great. We're over 1,700, working towards 2,500 and then 5,000. Follow along on social media at MKickaround, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Support us with a little bit of cash, coffee.com/morningkickaround. You can buy us, a coffee at just a $5 donation point. You can do something much larger if you wish, or something maybe monthly or semi-weekly or something like that. Coffee.com/morningkickaround. And we're a podcast now. So search for Morning Kick Around wherever you get your podcasts. Morning Kick Around, now a podcast.